All right, what's up, guys? Welcome to the 69th episode of The Get Down. My name is Cream.
Gary W. here. So
How are you, Gar? Welcome.
I'm hanging. I've had family down here. It's been like a little kicked back and relaxed a little, but not too relaxed because it's tax season. And that's never fun for anybody who owns a small business or any business at that. But Otherwise, good. Just hanging. You had an eventful weekend. I got to kick back a little bit. It's my first weekend off in 4 weeks.
Yeah, you've been grinding. So you had a nice little family time off. But you're right, guys. If you haven't started thinking about your taxes, you probably should here this week or next.
Yeah, I just started doing my personal.
Yeah, go through your expenses, create your business expenses, and understand how much money you made on the year. That stuff's all really important. And the more time and the better job you do now up front, the less money you're gonna have to pay on the back end. So just a quick tax 2 cents here.
One other thing. I know this isn't even a topic that we're supposed to be talking about, but anyways, but the other thing is, like, you could do like a little financial review and then also have some kind of realistic expectation for the year to come, and then be able to financially plan for the year. I know we had a light quarter in the first quarter last year. So, you could start to kind of see what you did in January here and then project out from there. So just something to think about, guys.
Yeah. And that's important to see your growth as well, especially if you're someone that's trying to go, become a full-time DJ. You really want to know how much money you're making and how much money you're spending to project out if you're even able to financially just DJ or just produce or whatever the case may be. So,
yep.
All right. So quick side note, we're already off to a rocky start. We're jumping off of our plan here, but that stuff's important. But yeah, so you guys didn't get a podcast last week because I was like deathly sick.
Non-COVID related.
Yeah, non-COVID related. I had 2 negative PCR tests for COVID, and it was just either the flu or a really bad stomach bug that just took me out. I had to cancel 3 gigs 2 weeks ago, which I don't think I've canceled. I don't know, maybe 5 gigs my entire DJ career. Thinking back, there was one other time I was really sick and had to cancel a couple gigs.
You got sick at a really inopportune time. It was like right when the weekend hit.
Right. It was like went to work on Thursday and then woke up Friday with 102.5 fever and like literally couldn't do anything for a week.
Yeah, I was shocked that you were sidelined for so long. But we got the gigs covered and that was all good. But that's another thing with like financials. Like, that's something you can't plan for. I understand that, but that's why it's always good to have a little extra something in case you do lose 3 gigs or 4 gigs. It's a ton of money.
Right. And I had a pretty light December and then Christmas, and this time of the year is always a little tight financially. So I loaded up on gigs this week. I added 2 extra gigs to my weekend rundown. And it's nice because we have some flexibility and we're able to do that if we need to. So
I feel like it's been a black cloud hanging over your head though for about 2.5 weeks here, because you have to cancel 3 gigs because of sickness. Then you go into the next weekend, you load up on gigs, and we get hit with you guys, because I'm down in Florida, you guys get hit with a massive snowstorm on the weekend, which is detrimental to everybody in our industry.
Yeah, I think our Friday and Saturday night here this past weekend was pretty much wiped out. I know most of our venues were all open and we tried to make the best of the night, but slow DJing nights and slow nights for the venue bring up a whole list of, we'll call it hurdles in having a successful night. So,
but not, I'm just realizing this. So not only that, you're coming off a sickness, you get hit with a snowstorm, and then obviously you were extremely sick. So you weren't drinking, correct? So there wasn't even so now you're hit with a slow night while it's snowing, which is usually like, I don't know, in the town that I grew up in, like when it snows, it's party time. Like as soon as the snow hits the ground. And so now you have to deal with a slow room while being sober, just coming off an off weekend. I can't think of a worse scenario, period. It sounds it sounds just like extremely challenging, and your patience probably was tried several times.
It was actually not as bad as it sounds, I guess you could say. I think despite having so many hours of actual DJing, I hadn't played the weekend before, so it was nice to kind of just get back behind the decks. I knew I needed the money, so I was not that I needed the money. I wanted to make some money, so I was making extra money. And honestly, the sober DJing thing was only a little strange the first night at Tally Ho. Normally, like Tally Ho is a night where I'm generally gonna drink because it's just industry and people are handing me shots all the time. And then some of the other gigs on the weekend, maybe I'll just have one drink or two drinks, or it's rare for me to get really fucked up, and it's rare for me to have zero drinks. It's always kind of like a happy medium. But coming out of the weekend, it was kind of nice to be sober and have that clarity while you're DJing, not be hungover, and really just deal with preparing and getting through. On Saturday, it was like almost 10 hours of DJing because I picked up a day shift at Wicked Wolf, and then they canceled my opener at Birch. So I had to play the full night, which was unexpected. But yeah, I mean, the sober thing wasn't so bad. And I'm honestly probably going to keep it going here for the foreseeable future and just see how long I go without drinking.
I know Greg UFOs was doing that for a long while, where he was straight up no drinking at all while he was DJing, and I did it a few times, and like last year or something, and it's incredible the clarity you have, and the kind of flexibility that it gives you in kind of switching up your sets. You don't kind of fall into, well, I feel like at least I don't fall into like the same old patterns, like those like little safety nets so that you can like fall back on.
Right.
And in my experience of taking more chances, my sets have been a little more all over the place, as opposed to kind of like coasting along.
Right.
I don't know why that is, but I think with drinking there are distractions, right? You're probably talking to the person that's bringing that drink to you for a period of time, and you're gonna like try to mix over to wherever you're at. So you kind of have that going on. I don't know. Like I just feel like there's more focus when you're not drinking. You're just kind of like in your computer and staring at the crowd and dealing with that.
For sure.
Dealing with the things you should be dealing with.
For sure. And I think this week would be this past week is a hard week to judge, like a weekend of sober DJing, because it was so slow everywhere.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like the style that I DJ'd this weekend would be very different from a packed house weekend. And I think we're going to get into that, right? Like,
yeah.
What are some of the things that come along with these, washout weekends from weather or because it's New Year's Eve or whatever it might be?
I mean, offhand, when you have these weather related or whatever it might be that's going to hinder your attendance at your club or bar, obviously your sound is going to change dramatically from a packed room. I think it really, and we've been talking about this a lot, it needs to lean a little more or a lot more open format, I feel, because you want to keep the crowd engaged. You don't want them walking out the door. Listen, it was a struggle to get that person in the door in the first place because of, let's say it was -2 degrees at one point. I looked up there and it was snowing. And once that person's inside, you want to keep him there because it was a struggle to get him there. And then when they decide to leave, like that's it. Like they want to go home. Once you lose their interest, they want to go home and be in their warm house and put sweats on and be done with it.
Right. They're worried. They're worried. They're at the club, like probably having a good time, but also thinking about like, am I going to be able to get an Uber out of here, or can I drive home in this storm? So you're fighting that. The one advantage of once you get a crowd during a snowstorm, they're not going to bar hop. Like where we DJ, right, there's a lot of bars and a lot of nightlife. So people are hopping around a lot. So the only advantage would be that once you have people in the door, they're not going anywhere else. So as long as you keep their attention, they're going to stay with you.
Yeah, absolutely. But there is always that, like you said, thing in the back of your head where it's like, can I get home? Number one. And then it's like the when I get home, or I can't wait to get home where it's warm and I can like be comfortable and like
Yeah.
not be paying my $14 to drink. And this DJ is kind of boring right now. So I'm just gonna get out of here, So you really want to stay on top of it and really engage with the crowd, whether that be on the mic, whether that be through your music. Obviously, if it's a more empty room, I don't know. Like, yeah, you could play your EDM, but you don't want to sit in it, right? You don't want anybody to get like too bored. You really want to be jumping around and be like fresh, and keep people's ears fresh and kind of not get comfortable in your set, right?
Yeah, it's so much harder to DJ under these conditions than it is on a normal night when you're sold out in VIP and you have 800 people in the room. Like, you have to really, really work to keep your crowd under these circumstances because everyone's paying more attention to the music, right? The bartenders are less busy because they don't have 3 deep at the bar. The managers are less busy because they're not dealing with multiple tables. Maybe there's only a handful of tables. Security's got a lot less to worry about, right? And then patrons are walking into sometimes a slower room and saying, wow, like there's not really a vibe in here, or, they're not getting drunk super quickly because it's just not as comfortable because it's not as busy, there's just so many things that are playing against you as the DJ. And I think, like you said, you definitely want to lean open format. You definitely don't want to sit in anything, no genre. You really have to see who's in the room. You really have to see what they're reacting to and cater to those people, right?
Yeah, you're working. You're
really working.
Yeah. Let's go ahead. Finish your thought, because then I'm going to jump over to another thing.
No, that's pretty much it. That's good.
I'm going to peel the curtain back a little bit on back end stuff, because all the things that you had just said, we're actually saying for a reason with the bouncers and bar staff and all the people that are in the room that work there. There are, in most places now, group texts with management and bartenders and bouncers, just so there's communication in case something happens, not goes wrong, but something happens throughout the night where everybody needs to know about it. It's a quick way to get in contact with everybody, right?
Right.
And which is smart. It's one of the smarter things to be done in our industry. And, in post-pandemic times, I've been dealing with it a lot more. We've been dealing with it a lot more with, getting on with owners and managers and the bar staff. So when one of the bar staff or two of the bar staff aren't happy about the music, guess where it gets thrown into? And it gets thrown into this group chat, and it could be detrimental to, your, I don't want to say your career, but maybe like to that night, or what
you're
the
standing in that particular venue.
Right. The reaction by the owner or management to your set, if there's negative feedback about your music. So you really need to be on top of it for that reason, because like you said, those bartenders are just standing around more on slower nights. They're not like 3 deep, and they're not running around like crazy and constantly busy, where on a busy night, go up to a bartender and ask them how they like the set, and they will tell you most of the time, I didn't hear one song.
Right. Or they will say, oh, I had a great time, but that's because they're working and they know they're making money and it's packed. So the music had to be good, there's a lot of psychology, I think, that goes into this particular idea, but go ahead, continue.
Yeah. So I've been in plenty of bars where I ask, and they're like, well, to be honest, like it sounded good, but like, I don't know what songs you play, but now you're standing around and you're listening because you're not doing anything, and you're talking to your fellow bartenders, and you're talking to the manager, you're talking to the bouncers. And now like dialogue gets brought up about the music that's being played because people are paying attention because the room is empty. So DJs, make sure on when it's slow, and especially when it's slow, you have to be on your shit. You cannot just mail it in. It just doesn't work. It doesn't work because people are really, really paying attention at that point. It's just real. I think that's such an overlooked part of our job, is the slow parts of the nights. Maybe not so much on a regular Saturday where it's 9 to 10. That's like kind of like you're just kind of building the room. It's different. I mean, on a dead night when it's 11:30, 11:45, it's peak hour and it's still not packed. You still have to kind of play like it's peak hour, but maybe it's not the biggest house record that's out at the time. Maybe it's going into, I don't know, like a set that worked a couple of years ago that like you're really bouncing around from record to record every 40 seconds or 45 seconds. You could take a different approach to it, to what your peak hour looks like.
Right.
Because sometimes if you're going to play this huge record, it's going to look stupid in an empty room. So you have to approach your peak hour differently.
Yeah. When it comes to music, like you said, the big EDM stuff does not play well whatsoever in a big empty room. It just doesn't.
It looks silly.
It looks stupid. It sounds stupid. It's like this music was made for festivals. Like it's made for thousands and thousands of people out here, and not for a venue that holds, 500 and there's only 100. Like it just doesn't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say that maybe the music that you would normally play to build like pre-peak, like that 11 to 12 o'clock hour music, maybe that's your peak EDM stuff, right?
It's incredible. And I think I said this a couple of weeks ago, but I completely had lost my, that like just stopped really playing that folder, that pre-peak folder. And you go in there, it's especially good on a slower night.
Yeah.
Slower, whatever that might look like. Because that's your peak hour. Because all that other stuff is too big.
Right.
And some of that stuff can translate into peak, but you have to have built your peak in such a way that still hits that way. So you could just throw that stuff in on a slower night, and it still sounds big, much bigger than it would for a packed room.
Yeah.
So that's a good point.
The hip hop stuff is going to hit a lot harder. It's just going to work better. Stuff people know, sing along, the classic hip hop stuff.
Yep.
That's what worked all weekend, like that's just what worked. And as a DJ, you need to be aware of what's going to work on a slower night, because like Gary said, everyone's listening. Everyone is hypercritical, and you don't need to take it because everybody in that room has, they're focused, or their outlook of a successful night is different than your outlook sometimes, and the bartenders, they don't necessarily know what music makes them money. They just know what music they like, and a lot of times they might be hypercritical, and it's just because you're not playing the music or the style of music that they like. So, we talk about this on my manager calls for Hoboken Hospitality all the time, because there are a ton of staff and everyone has an opinion, and you have to kind of fight through that a little bit and not take it personally. And again, we rarely have these hyper slow nights, and it's not something that's a norm. So
I got a question for you. Do you think that bartenders tend to begin to like the music that, I don't want to say that is making them money, but they like the music at peak hour when it's packed and money is exchanging across the bar on a regular night? Like, do you think that like they kind of connect that to certain like songs that you're playing, and it's like, okay, well, I don't know. You understand what I'm saying? Like they start to like the music that is like peak hour because that's their best and busiest time.
Yeah, I think
a lot of the
they
peak hour
feel
stuff.
The music. They feel the energy of the room too. Like they've been in this world long enough to know, like, we're rocking right now,
Yeah.
So, and when we're rocking, they're probably making more money. So I think there's definitely a correlation there.
Right.
I don't know. I think we should definitely have a bartender on and really talk about this and just see, their perspective, because we can surmise, but we don't really know, I guess.
Yeah. That is one aspect of the nightlife industry that we haven't had a bartender on.
Yeah.
So I think maybe a bartender and manager would be great.
Maybe we'll get Nico on or something, because Nico understands music and understands the flow of a night and how to open a room and how to be a headliner more so than most others. So I think he'd be good.
Yeah, that'd be a good one. Like when we come up with guests on air here.
Yeah. Something else that I was saying all weekend was, it's really hard to have a younger, less experienced DJ come in and do a really good job under these circumstances. This is something that comes with experience and comes with being very flexible with your music. And just the guys who have been there and done that longer are going to do a better job in these scenarios generally. And I think it's unfair for venues to be like, well, we don't want to spend that money, so just send anyone. And I think that they underestimate how much that hurts the bottom line for their venue.
I think we experienced this weekend across the board management decisions that we were asked to have input on, but at the end of the day, the decisions went the other way.
Yeah.
And obviously there was text. I'm not saying that we're always right, but there was text messages later like, oh, should have done this,
Yeah.
And but it's difficult. It's difficult if you haven't lived it several times, because in the infancy of Get Down, we would be like, oh, well, what did we do last year? Or what did we do last time that this happened? Now that we've lived this for 6 years or whatever it might have been, we can make more informed decisions, right? And I feel like a lot of the managers, because a lot of the managers that were making decisions this weekend may not have been managing for many years. The turnover in bar management is, it's like yearly almost, because the hours along the pay sucks.
Yeah.
So, being that we've lived it, we were like, okay, well, it's snowing and you're a local place, you should probably have your DJ. Don't cancel your DJ. And we had 1 or 2 local places cancel, and they were packed, because the people that live in that area are going to just walk into that bar and hang out that night until the night's over and then walk home.
Yeah.
Because they don't have to worry about Ubers and everything like that. They put their snow boots on, they get effed up, and that's it. They call it a day.
Right.
And they're like, well, we should have had the DJ. And they didn't. They kind of left a little bit on the bone there for next weekend, because now those local people that might not hang out there every weekend will be like, oh, I didn't know they had a DJ here on Saturdays or on Friday, whatever it was. Maybe I'll come back next week and check it out. So like sometimes that little $200 and something or $300 investment, $250 or $300 investment, maybe it's sometimes worth it on those nights, because you're going to be crowded anyway. Money's coming across the bar, and now you're putting a little more exposure into your local market. On the grander scale, with a place like in Hoboken, New Jersey City, those decisions need to be made for things like bottle service, for things like closing down a floor. Let's say at Ashford, you have 5 different areas, closing down different areas and pushing all your crowd into more confined spaces, so it looks more crowded.
Yeah.
A place like Ashford, you can do that because you have no idea some of those other rooms exist, especially from like the DJ booth. I can't even see 3 of the rooms. So
I think that's the most important thing a venue can do, is create a smaller space, so that when we know there's going to be less people. So smaller space, less people, let's put them it'll create the illusion that it's busier than it actually is. And then when people walk in, they see other people and they're more likely to stay. Because when customers walk in and it's dead, like how many times you see people walk in and look and be like, oh, it's dead, and they walk right out and go somewhere else. It happens all the time.
We've had this conversation a million times off air, and it's the reason, like, so I have worked in 2 places that I can think of off the top of my head that had put a wall in the middle of the room because the room's so big. So on like a Thursday at the beginning of the night, when you're trying to get people to walk in, you close that curtain or that wall down. And this way people don't come in and turn around and walk out. I think I've seen one, I counted it one night at Sona years ago. And I'm like, well, let's just count this off. We had a game, me and one of the bartenders. It was like 60 people like walked in and walked out. If those 60 people stay, it looks good.
Right.
But people don't think that way. They want to walk into a packed place.
Yeah.
And 626 does it now on Thursdays. We shut down we put the wall up, and then if it gets good enough, we'll open up the main dance floor. But it's not in those spaces. It's just not worth it to have the whole thing open, because it looks dead and you'll have more people walking out than you don't.
Right. These management decisions, it's a touchy situation, right? Because they're the manager of the venue and it's their overall decision. But at the same time, we as DJs, especially people who've played certain rooms for a while, like we want to give our input because there are certain things that from a DJ perspective, they might not be thinking about, right? So at Birch, for example, we had a pretty decent night for the conditions of being in a blizzard and negative degrees and whatever else. Birch has a huge dance floor and then an upstairs VIP area where there's a lot of the bottle service tables. And what tends to happen on slower nights, everyone congregates upstairs because there's a regular bar too for patrons. So what I always say is, hey, why don't we shut the upstairs down, move the DJ booth down to the first floor, so we create this smaller space. It's still a great room. We get the cryo, we get the lights, everything that you would normally experience on a regular night, the customer would still experience. And to me, that's a no-brainer, but sometimes they just, people disagree with me. So that's something that I always thought would be advantageous for us to make more money and salvage a night. The other thing that makes Birch very unique is that there's table service and there's customers behind the DJ booth. So on a slower night, when the dance floor, which is in front of me, is not very full, I'm constantly having to turn around to see what's happening behind me so that I can gauge what to play. And on these slower nights, like we said, it's so important to be able to watch your crowd's reaction. You have to feed off their energy and what they're reacting to. And like one small thing that could be done, right? We have X amount of tables upstairs. Let's put the guests who do show up that kept their table reservations in an area where the DJ can actually see what they're doing, not directly behind us. And this is just stuff that if you're not a DJ, you're not thinking about,
Right. How many tables do you have downstairs on the main floor, on the main dance floor at Birch?
There's two larger tables that'll hold like bigger parties. So like 10 plus. And then I think they have two smaller, like 4-person tables that are on each side of the stage. So there's not a lot of tables down there.
But realistically, if you have, it depends on your setup and how many people you have per reservation. But like if you had 6 4 tops, let's call it, right? You can realistically put them all there, no?
Yeah. I mean, we'd have to probably move furniture and make it work. But yeah, we could make it work.
Yeah. It's just, it's unique. It's kind of funny. We have 2 of our bigger rooms, Ashford and Birch, have really unique DJ booths.
Right. Unique booths and unique setups where there are multiple areas and multiple bars where customers can hang out.
So it almost makes it at both venues impossible to see the whole room from the DJ booth.
Yeah.
I know it isn't, it is impossible at Ashford because of how high like the parlor goes.
And think about the roof in the summer when the spring and summer and fall, when the roof is open, we have no idea what's happening on the roof. Sometimes when they close the roof, there's like 200 people that come downstairs and you're like, holy shit, I didn't even know those people were up there.
Yeah. I DJ'd a few parties from the DJ booth downstairs in Ashford for the roof, which was the strangest thing. It's like, just texting, asking people how it is up there. But, so yeah, they're just unique DJ booths where people are spending money. You can't see them. So management kind of does need to communicate with the DJ, like, what those tables want. And because it's impossible for you to read it or feel it, because if you can't see it, it's out of your hands at that point.
Yeah.
So is this like a management podcast? I feel like I'm going to send this out to all the managers that we work with. But no, for real, like when I can't see the people that are spending money, like you really have to be in communication with me, and any DJ that you have,
right?
To make sure that those people remain happy. But yeah, I don't know. It was a funky weekend for you guys for sure, and I felt it and saw it over text message. I was answering. I'd gone to bed at like midnight, and then I was answering like texts at like 4 a.m. of like different things that were happening. And I could tell like, because of the weather, things were a little touch and go. And
everyone was way more sensitive and critical, and as a DJ, Gary and I are going to give you guys feedback. Don't take it the wrong way. Just take the criticism and use it the next time you're in a snowstorm DJ situation. And one other thing that I think you can do, this is like an action item that you could take the next time, or if you're a resident somewhere, you want to be having these open conversations with managers just so they can get an understanding of some of the things that you're thinking about. Because like we said, they aren't the DJ, so they might not be thinking about some of these things. So bring it up this week when you walk into the venue and say, hey, I know last week is a little slower. Here's a couple things that I was thinking about that maybe we could do the next time it's like that. And just give them your 2 cents. And again, when it does happen again, it's not your place or your job to make that decision, but at least you've given your input, and maybe you'll want to reach out again, Snowstorm on a Friday night, and be like, hey, manager, remember last time this XYZ happened? Do you want to try doing it this way for tonight or for this weekend?
Right.
And again, you're not making a decision. They're going to make the decision. It's their job. But having that communication back and forth, you want to have the best night possible, right? If the night's a success, even on a night where there's a snowstorm, that looks good for you. So you want to do anything you can to try and make it a success.
This came out of a really funny time because we had a successful January at a predominant amount of our venues. Very successful for what January was. Had a lot of packed Friday and Saturday nights, barring the week after New Year's. Obviously, that's always shot. No matter what happens, that's a shot weekend. But that next Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then the subsequent one, bangs. They were all great. They were really, really fun weekends with packed rooms that were kind of with shocking numbers coming across the bar. So to have this snowstorm come after 2 very successful weeks kind of sucked. And I think people got a little spoiled, like management and bartenders got a little spoiled about having crowds in their venues in January. And it kind of brought everybody back down to earth. But it does put like we've been saying, it puts our job in a really strange place when it's dead, and especially when there's that expectation from the management and the people that you're working with to be a good night no matter what happens, and then you're going to play differently, and then they're going to be like, well, that's kind of strange, and it throws everybody off a little bit. So yeah, be open with those. If you're a resident somewhere and you're close with your bar staff, just be open, be like, hey, listen, it was a slower night and it was snowing, and I kind of went a little different direction to try to shake things up and keep people interested. And it's not going to be the same old tracks that you're going to hear week after week that are going to get a big crowd going. And this is why you heard what you heard. Because what had happened at a few places, I'm sure, because this has happened to me plenty, where like you get done with the set and the bartender's like, well, that was weird, or that was different.
Yeah.
That was different is always the thing. And then like your immediate gut reaction is to like take a little bit of offense. I mean, we're human artists, we're human and artists, and protects like what we're the product that we're putting out. So you feel some type of way about it initially, but you have to understand why the person's saying that. You have to understand where they're coming from too.
Yeah. Be okay with getting criticism, guys. Just be okay with it. You can have that initial, like, well, damn, why are they saying that? Like, I did a good job. That's normal. It's okay. But don't take it to heart. Use the criticism so that the next time you're in this situation, or the next time you're faced with something similar, you've been there and done that before. So you know how to react. And this is the experience that Gary and I constantly talk about. You have to do it the wrong way to understand how to do it the right way. And until you experience it, you don't know. So don't get upset about it. Roll with the punches and just, put a little chip on your shoulder. The next time you're in that room, you really crush that room so that you get the great feedback that you are used to getting.
Yeah. If you don't think about it, if you don't take it home, be like, why did I react like that? And you don't learn from it, then you're going to continually handle it the wrong way.
And then you're not going to get booked, or you're not going to get booked at that particular venue anymore.
You're not going to get booked, and you're not going to grow as a DJ. And then that's just going to make you not get booked anywhere. You're going to develop a reputation about not being able to take criticism and not be able to have somebody talk to you about your set in a negative way. And it'll snowball into 0 bookings because word gets around about that stuff. So you need to learn. You need to check yourself and learn from these types of situations.
There's definitely been points in my career where I had a big head and would go into places and be like, I own this room. Like, fuck that. Like, I crush it every week or whatever it is. And then somebody kind of brings you back down to earth and you're like, well, that's not right. Why? Like, that's totally not cool. But then you think about it, you're like, wow, maybe they are right. And then the next time you're like, all right, I got to like really fuck this up this week and crush this place.
Right.
To like throw it in their face so that they then give you the positive feedback that you're used to getting, you know?
Yeah, for sure. It's just, it's a part of the growing process in this business. And like any other business or anything else in life, you have to be able to take the criticism well and learn from it.
Yeah.
And use it as constructive criticism.
So something that I want to start doing towards the end of our podcast, when we kind of like, we're wrapping up this topic, right? So I want to give you guys, the listeners, some like action items to take away from our conversations that you can go do in your careers and your businesses. So I think there's two things. The first thing is think about this past weekend, things that work, things that didn't work, and just have a quick conversation with the manager in whatever room that you were in. You know, bring a couple ideas to the table, or, you know, just so they understand that you're thinking about it and how to make it better. So that's number one, especially the places where you're a resident or you're there very often. Have that convo. Number two, organization of your music, right? These are huge open format nights. Maybe you create a folder that leans more towards slower nights. So have a couple, 10 to 20 songs in all these different genres that'll allow you to transition very quickly to be able to kind of play the room that you need, or play the way you need to play on a slower night. So those would be my two action items. And that's kind of it.
No, I like that. And something to put a point on your number one action item would be, think about this. So the snowstorm thing just kind of popped up, and that's a really good thing to come, a good topic to come at your manager with this weekend. But then you can also kind of think out for a couple of months, like St. Patty's Day is coming up. That's another thing you could talk about. And then we always say, like, when the fall's coming up, talk about football, talk about those different curveballs that maybe the manager's not thinking about, and start the conversation like the week before. This is one that you're going to have the week after, because this, nobody sees a snowstorm coming 2 weeks out. So, this is something you take this as a little learning piece of a learning thing, and just go with it for next week.
When you show management that you're thinking like a manager, and there are certain things about the flow of the night that you're thinking about, it's not your job, but when you're thinking about it, it gives you way more credibility with management, and it just like makes them think more highly of you, makes them think that you're on your team, whatever venue you're in, and you're working with the manager, not working against that person. And I think it gives you a little more leeway in the room where they're not going to be all over you, because they're starting to understand that you get it, and you understand that you're there to help them make them money, and you're a team player. And that's going to do a lot for you as far as having more wiggle room to play some weird stuff, having more leeway to maybe, if it is a slow night, not get the criticism that some people have gotten. So I think that's a big part of growing your business, is being able to think as a manager and work with the manager on these things.
100%. One thing that I do at a lot of the venues that I'm at weekly, when I was up there weekly, is tell the manager, especially if the manager's in the booth a bunch, like tell the manager, well, this is why I'm doing this, or I'm going to go in this direction because of this.
Yeah.
Once you give them that information, they feel a lot more comfortable.
Yeah.
And it's not like, well, why is that happening? So yes, you're absolutely right. And I think this is extremely helpful information for anybody that's really growing as a DJ.
Yeah. And that communication throughout the night is important. At Birch, we had a big table, maybe like 20 to 30 people, and they wanted to hear all the new hip hop. And that's not something that I would sit in for very long. And I ended up playing a lot of that because I was catering to the table that was going to spend a huge percentage of the overall revenue for the night. Like, you kind of have to play into that stuff, and having that open communication and understanding that table wanted a certain type of music is really important.
Awesome. I think we have hit a lot of good points this one.
Yeah, this was great. I like this conversation. I think this kind of like, it opens it up to how we think on these nights, and then how the venues think. So
it's kind of funny. This is not something that was obviously not like I was just saying, on our radar, and not something that, if you would have asked me 2 weeks ago to talk about a slow snow night, I wouldn't have 40 minutes of conversation or 30 minutes of conversation, because it's just not fresh in our brains. Right. But then you live through it and you're like, oh, well, let's highlight like the things that we've gone through and remember this for next time.
Yeah.
It's really important. So you got a lot going on today, actually, and then this weekend. So dive in. I want to hear about what's going on.
I have a big week. So tonight, we're recording this on Tuesday. I know we normally release the podcast on Wednesday, but tonight I'm actually jumping on D-Rock's Discord, and we're going to do like a little interview conversation. Not totally sure what we're talking about yet. We've talked about some ideas, but we're definitely going to talk Get Down. We're going to talk the podcast. If you listen to this, you're going to like the conversation that D-Rock and I have. If you're not in his Discord, we'll put the link here, and I'll be promoting it the next couple days on my Instagram. But
you want to explain a little bit like what D-Rock does, or?
Yeah. So D-Rock is a traveling DJ. He is huge in the college scene. So he plays a lot of like big frat parties,
right?
Big like pre-football and sports parties on these campuses. He's had some viral videos with, there was a remix of like the NFL theme.
Yes.
And if you've seen the video with the NFL theme that goes into like this big EDM record where crowds are going insane, it was probably D-Rock.
Right.
So he's created this Discord that has a ton of DJs. And it's really cool. You know, we share edits, we share stems and acapellas, and we share ideas. D-Rock actually, because he travels, he puts on a lot of the DJs when he's going to a new city and he doesn't have DJs to work with. He'll be like, show alert, and people can like, request to be the opener for particular shows. It's really cool. I think he brings so much value. So I'm in there and I consume the stuff that goes on in there. So it's going to be cool to actually have a higher end conversation in there. He just had like Blau on recently. They gave away NFTs. They did all this cool stuff. So if you're not in the Discord, get in the Discord. We'll share the links all over. And they're definitely going to post my conversation that you can go and watch in the future. So even if you're, we're recording this on a Tuesday and I'm going to have that conversation tonight, but you can watch it whenever you jump in there.
Nice.
So that would be the first thing. The next thing is this Friday, my next original track called Make It Hot is releasing. So I have the pre-save all over the place. I would greatly appreciate if you guys would pre-save the record. It is typical Cream bass house, electro house style. And I think you're going to like it. Again, it comes out on Friday and it's available on any streaming platform where you would consume music.
I pre-saved it. Haven't heard a bit of it, so I can't even give you guys any information.
Yeah,
I'm sure it's going to be dope.
I kind of like holding these records in the dark, even to like the Get Down guys. Obviously, I would send it to you.
Right.
And I've sent it to a few DJs, but I kind of like hanging on to it. So there's a little more interest and there's a little more like, well, what does it sound like kind of thing.
I'm looking forward to it. I don't want I don't want it before Friday. So.
And then this weekend, Thursday night, Tally Ho, Friday night back in Morristown at Iron Bar, Saturday at the Ashford. And then Sunday, I'm not DJing, but we are celebrating Greg's birthday at Lobby. Greg, So Wavy, and Angelo the Kid are doing a hip hop brunch, which I'm pretty excited for. It's going to be cool to just go and hang out and be a guest.
I'm definitely bummed I'm missing that. That's going to be a great time. What time's that start? I was looking for it. I was guys, if you're Mark, I know you're listening to this. So if you can like just drop when that brunch starts on Sunday. I was looking for it yesterday, actually, so I could direct people, what time to expect brunch, because brunch can be any time from, noon to 8 p.m. So.
Yeah. I mean, I would assume these parties generally will like start at 1, get going by 3 and hit its peak by like 4:30.
Right.
That would be my guess, but I don't know.
That's what I'm thinking, but you never know.
Mark's like, shut the fuck up, guys. We want guys to get there when it opens. Yeah. Shout to Mark G. This is one of Mark G's special one-off parties that he tends to put together that always includes a dope lineup of DJs. So
absolutely.
Shout to Mark. But yeah, Gary, you're going to be in town next week. It's Gary's birthday on February 10th. So we're going to be doing all kinds of stuff. He's going to be in town next week.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think we're going to have a pod before,
Yeah,
but just,
we'll promo where you're going to be, but just giving guys a heads up to start preparing their livers for your arrival.
Oh man. Yeah. It's a short trip too. You know what? I spent the month out there and I was like, I want to be home in Florida. It's like 75 today. And, so I'm only up for like 5 days. I think 4 nights, 5 days.
Yeah.
In and out, get me back here. But it's going to be fun. There's a lot of good things lined up, and I'll fill you guys in next week on that episode on what's happening. Me and Greg that following week. So
yeah, Greg is Wednesday the 9th, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Greg is UFO's the 9th, and then Gary the 10th.
Yeah, big party weekend. It'll be fun.
Greg's celebrating his birthday for like 2 weeks straight here. He's got the Wednesday birthday, so he's got the bookend parties.
That's the nice thing about that Wednesday. You could do it both ways. But I think the Sunday brunch is going to be super, super fun. Mark always throws a good party, like we said. So a little bummed I'm not celebrating with you guys, but I'll see you guys a couple days after.
Yeah.
Anyway, good conversation today.
Definitely. Thank you guys for listening. My name is Kareem.
Gary Debbie.
We'll catch you guys next week. Peace out.
All right. Peace, guys.